he's here.
Satanic rituals, disappearing phantoms and a lost bride await the most haunted team in West Wickham. Hello and welcome to Most Haunted. Behind me is an elaborate cave system that was built for a secret society of wealthy men. It's also said bizarre rituals took place here. Along these dark tunnels which take you further underground, strange shapes have been seen floating towards unsuspecting visitors. With paranormal sightings in abundance, we have to uncover the mystery of the Hellfire caves. The West Wickham Caves are a series of tunnels excavated in the late 1740s and 1750s to give unemployed farm workers jobs quarrying chalk to build roads. It's said that Sir Francis Dashwood, the second Baronet, held secret meetings of the famous Hellfire clubs in the caves. Hellfire clubs were notorious, thought to be the home of sexual rites, orgies, abuse of alcohol and Satanism. Now the caves are open to the public, and since visitors have been coming here, many ghosts have been seen.
The caves have always been part of my life. My father used to bring us here as children, and we used to run down with candles, often when the lights weren't working. Or we wouldn't do running. If you ran with a candle, it would blow out, and then there'd be lots of screams. So you had to walk very, very slowly and carefully. And if a puff of air came around the corner, you'd have to stop and let the candle settle. The caves were actually built in the mid-18th century, so that's nearly 300 years ago. So they've been here a very long time. But I think there was a period of about 200 years between 1780 and sort of probably 1950 when nothing happened to them, and they were blocked off and they were considered dangerous and evil places.
There were some very famous people involved with Sir Francis Dashwood. John Hogarth, the illustrator, Paul Whitehead, the famous poet, even the son of the Archbishop of Canterbury, all came down here to join in the Hellfire Club. In those days, it was a bit like sex and drugs and rock and roll, but without the rock music. There would be a vast amount of drinking down here, debauchery. Women were also allowed down here as well. There was an inner temple of at least 12 men dressed in long white flowing robes, but the abbot, as he was known, that was down here, wore a scarlet robe with rabbit skin around the cuffs and around the hood. There was probably Satanism, devil worship. Terrible things probably went on down here.
This is the main part of the caves, the banqueting hall, where supposedly a lot of debauchery took place. It's said that a young girl was lured down here on the pretext of getting married. It was a cruel joke that went horribly wrong, and ever since then, the ghost of this young girl has been seen wandering through the caves in a Victorian wedding dress.
There's a young girl known as Suki. She was reputedly a housemaid at the local pub, the George and Dragon. She was enticed down here by some lads, told that her betrothed was waiting for her. He was going to elope with her, and she came down here wearing a wedding dress. When she arrived, of course, her betrothed wasn't here, just a group of lads. They started to taunt her. She picked up a stone and threw it at them. One of the lads picked up the stone and threw it back. Unfortunately, the stone hit her between the eyes. She fell to the floor, dead. And they say that her tormented soul, her spirit, still wanders down these tunnels.
Before we opened it for tourists as a tourist attraction, and when we did that we had to make it more secure, the river Styx used to separate the main part of the body of the caves from the inner temple, which is the very, very bottom chamber. And as religious belief had it, the river Styx was the river that separated the real world from the underworld. And so if I wasn't going to stay anywhere, it would be in the inner temple, which is the very bottom chamber.
All this devil worship that probably went on here was epitomised in the fact that down below, directly beneath the church, was what was known as the inner temple. This was looked upon as hell, and the church at the top, of course, was referred to as heaven. How many sacrifices may have taken place here, nobody will ever know. How many young children may have disappeared, never to be seen again, we'll never know. There's also the story of Paul Whitehead, the poet. He was a member of the Hellfire Club, and when he died, he left £50 to Sir Francis Dashwood to have his heart put into an urn and stored here at West Wickham. Someone stole it many, many years ago, but the urn is still here. It's down here behind some iron bars, and I believe his ghost still wanders these tunnels, obviously looking for his heart.
Throughout this amazing structure, the apparition of a man wearing Victorian clothing has been seen following people until he's noticed, when he suddenly vanishes. Could he have been one of the many workmen that dug these caves? Or could he have been a victim of the notorious Hellfire Club? We have 24 hours to find out.
I'd be fascinated to see if the Most Haunted crew find or see or get any sign of any ghost. I think they're being a bit wet going with cameras and electronic aids. I think they should really do it just with candles and nothing else. And then I think they would be very, very more frightened than they might otherwise be, particularly if they were separated and left on their own in different parts of the caves.
Phil Wyman, our paranormal investigator, had spent some time earlier at the caves to conduct the baseline tests. It's said that the tunnels stretch for over half a mile, and with so much ground to cover in total darkness, the tests seem to have taken their toll on Phil.
What's the matter? You're shaking like a leaf.
I know, my head is spinning round and round. I feel really dizzy. My eyes won't focus on anything. If I look at something to focus on it, it moves. There's nothing wrong with my stomach. When I walk, I get really dizzy and nauseous. I feel as though I'm going to be sick.
And that's since being in there?
That's since being down there. I was down there before dinner, and I started feeling really sick before.
When you did the baseline test yesterday, you were all right, or did you feel a little bit funny?
I was fine. It has got a strange atmosphere down there, and it has been known for people to feel sick after being in haunted locations, especially ones like we're doing today. I've never been affected by it before, though. I'm not saying it is paranormal, but it could be. I've not eaten anything that would make me feel sick. I had a light lunch and I felt sick before I even had anything to eat.
Well, I suggest what you do is just sit, maybe sit in the van, sit warm and see how you go,
okay.
And don't worry,
right.
Just get better.
Okay.
Oh, go on, somebody go and sit down. Poor Louis.
We were all concerned about Phil. Why was he feeling so unwell? It seemed the caves were already starting to have an effect. Would the rest of the crew be able to cope with the claustrophobic conditions in the dark tunnels later on? We were pleased we had asked psychic artist Judith Cooney to join us. There are many different ways that psychics can communicate with spirits. Judith lets the entity she's communicating with move her hand over the page to create a picture